Oh my God. Huh?
They shot it up. Hey, blood, he dead.
Who's dead?
Hey, blood, from the driver dead, bro.
Oh yeah, we did.
Yeah.
He did. Them motherfuckers, bro.
It's a miracle that that baby was not shot. It's a miracle.
I want you to close your eyes for a second and picture a young woman, 26 years old, hair in her hands, a comb behind her ear, music playing somewhere in the background. That was Gabryel Ayers. Most people called her G.I. Na. And on the south side of Chicago, she was somebody. Not famous. Not loud. Just somebody. The kind of person whose presence you feel when she walks into a room. She was a hairstylist. That might sound simple, but for people in her community, a good hairstylist is more than just someone who does your hair. They are your therapist, your friend, your weekly reason to feel good about yourself. And G.I. Na was that person for a lot of people. She knew the stories behind the faces that sat in her chair. She listened. She cared. She was woven into the fabric of that neighborhood in ways that most people never get to be. But when she left work, she went home to something even more important. She was a mother. Her baby girl was not even 2 years old yet. Think about that. A child who still needed her mama for everything. To eat, to sleep, to feel safe in the world. And by all accounts, G.I. Na gave that little girl everything she had. Friends said she poured herself into being a good mother. That raising her daughter was not just something she did, it was who she was. She lived on the south side of Chicago. Now, if you have ever read anything about that part of the city, you know it carries a heavy reputation. Years and years of poverty, of violence, of communities that have been overlooked and underfunded. The people there are strong because they have had to be. They build lives in a place that does not always make it easy. G.I. Na was one of those people. She was not a headline before February 4th, 2026. She was just a young woman living her life, doing hair, loving her child, moving through her days the way most of us do. She had no idea what was coming. None of us ever do. Auburn Gresham. That is the name of the neighborhood where everything happened. And before I tell you what took place on that cold February afternoon, I think it is important that you understand where we are. Because places matter. The streets we walk on, the churches we pass, the neighbors who know our names, all of it matters. Auburn Gresham sits on Chicago's south side. It is a residential neighborhood. Family homes lined up next to each other, small businesses trying to stay open, churches on what feels like every other corner. And those churches are not just buildings. They are the heartbeat of a community that has learned to grieve together, to fight together, to hold each other up when the weight gets too heavy. One of the most well-known institutions in the area is St. Sabina Church. For many years, it has been a place where people gather not just to pray, but to demand better. Anti-violence marches, community meetings, vigils for the lost, St. Sabina has seen it all. It is that kind of neighborhood. One that refuses to be silent, even when it hurts the most. The shooting happened on the 7900 block of South May Street, right near the intersection of 79th Street. If you could have been there on the morning of February 4th, 2026, you would have seen an ordinary day unfolding. People walking to their cars, kids maybe home from school, the quiet hum of a neighborhood going about its business. Nothing out of the ordinary. Nothing to make you nervous. At 1:25 in the afternoon, all of that changed. 1 minute, people were just living their lives. The next minute, the sound of gunfire shattered everything. And a mother who had done nothing wrong, a mother who had a baby girl waiting for her love, was caught in the middle of something terrible. Auburn Gresham would add another name to its long and painful list of people it has had to mourn. Now let me tell you what we know about that afternoon. About the moments just before the world fell apart. There was a white sedan moving along South May Street. Inside that car were 3 people. In the front passenger seat was G.I. Na, Gabryel Ayers. Behind the wheel was a 27-year-old man named Devin Draper. And in the back seat, strapped safely into her car seat, was G.I. Na's baby girl. We do not know exactly why they were on that particular street at that particular time. Investigators never released that detail, and honestly, it may not matter as much as people think. Because here's the thing, they were just in a car. A woman, a man, and a baby, riding through a neighborhood on a Wednesday afternoon. That is not a crime. That is just life. Witnesses later said the car appeared to either be parked or moving slowly along the block. There was nothing chaotic happening before the attack. No arguments that anyone reported. No signs of a confrontation building up. It was quiet. Normal. And then in an instant it was not. I think about what it must have felt like to be inside that car. The sunlight coming through the windows. Maybe the radio was on. Maybe Gianna was looking back at her daughter, making a funny face to keep the baby happy. Maybe she and Devin were in the middle of a regular conversation about regular things. We will never know exactly what those last quiet moments looked like. What we do know is that several armed individuals approached that vehicle. And everything that happened next was something no one in that car could have prepared for, something no one should ever have to face. I need to prepare you for this part, because it is hard to hear. It was hard for the community to process. It is still hard. When investigators arrived at South May Street after the shooting, they began placing evidence markers on the ground. One marker for each shell casing they found. By the time they were done, they had counted more than 50. More than 50 shots. Fired in broad daylight. Into a car that had a baby inside. Let that number sit with you for a moment. At least 3 gunmen approached the white sedan. They came with multiple weapons. And they opened fire with a kind of relentless, calculated fury that leaves you struggling for words. Bullets tore through the metal doors. The windows exploded outward. Glass and fragments went flying in every direction. The sound of those gunshots rang down the entire block, and people who heard it said it came in rapid bursts, wave after wave of fire. Some witnesses could not believe what they were seeing. Some pulled out their phones and recorded what was happening. And later, footage would circulate online showing the attackers walking up to the car and unloading their weapons before turning and running away.
Cold. Fast. Practiced.
Devin Draper, behind the wheel, tried to save them. He tried to drive away. He tried to get that car moving and get out of there, but the gunfire was too intense. The sedan veered, lost control, and crashed into a parked van or SUV nearby. The impact brought the car to a complete stop. When the shooting finally ended and the street fell quiet again, the damage told the story. 2 adults shot. Windows blown out. Casings covering the pavement. And in the back seat, still in her car seat, a baby girl. Somehow untouched. Somehow still breathing. Paramedics came as fast as they could. They found Gianna suffering from multiple gunshot wounds and rushed her to Little Company of Mary Medical Center. The doctors there did everything they could, but the wounds were too severe. Later that day, Gabryel Gianna Ayers was pronounced dead. She was 26 years old. Devin Draper survived. He was taken to Christ Medical Center and was listed in good condition. And the baby, Gianna's little girl, was taken to the hospital too, just to be checked. She had no physical injuries.
None.
In a car that had been struck by over 50 bullets, that tiny child came through without a scratch. The community needed to hear that. It did not take away the grief, but it gave people something to hold on to. 2 days after the shooting, hundreds of people gathered near that intersection on 79th and South May Street. Community members, activists, pastors, city officials. Brandon Johnson, the mayor, came to address the crowd. Representatives from Purpose Over Pain, a group that supports families who have lost loved ones to gun violence, stood with the people. There were tears. There were demands. There were prayers. Investigators have been working since that day. They recovered the shell casings. They reviewed surveillance footage. Witnesses reported seeing the gunman flee in a red Alfa Romeo. A reward of up to $20,000 was put together, $10,000 from Cook County Crime Stoppers, and additional funds pledged by St. Sabina Church for anyone with information that could lead to an arrest. As of today, no arrests have been made. The case is still open. The questions are still there. Who targeted that car?
Why?
Did they even know who was inside? Gianna's daughter is growing up without her mother. That baby who sat in the back seat, who survived something no child should ever witness, will one day be old enough to ask what happened. And somewhere, the people responsible for her mother's death are still out there. This story is not over. And for the people of Auburn Gresham, for everyone who sat in Gianna's chair, for everyone who loved her, it never really stops hurting. But they're still here, still praying, still fighting, still demanding that her life meant something. Because it did. It absolutely did.